You are on a park bench minding your business, and a baby in a stroller locks eyes with you. Not a glance, not a quick look. A full, unblinking stare. You look away. You look back. The baby is still there, still watching, as if you owe them an explanation. The mother notices. She laughs a little. She never does that with strangers. You smile, shrug it off, and go back to your afternoon. But something about that moment stays with you longer than it should. Because here's the thing nobody tells you. That stare was not random. It was not a charm. It was not a coincidence. That baby's brain had already run a full evaluation of everyone in that park, sorted the data, and selected you. The question is, what data did it use? And what had it already decided about you before you even noticed it was looking? Most people assume babies stare at whoever is nearest or whoever moves the most. That has been the casual explanation for decades. Proximity plus movement equals attention. It sounds logical. It fits what we observe. For a long time, researchers in developmental psychology treated sustained infant gaze as essentially reflexive, driven by simple visual salience, contrast, movement, brightness. Babies are drawn to faces the way they are drawn to lights. Interesting, but not meaningful. Then a 2014 study at Emory University tested that assumption directly. Researchers tracked the gaze patterns of 96 infants between 4 and 7 months old across a series of controlled social encounters. Each baby was placed in a room with 3 adults who varied in facial expressiveness, postural openness, and emotional tone. The researchers expected gaze duration to follow movement. The most physically expressive adult would hold attention longest. That was the hypothesis. That was what the data was supposed to confirm. It didn't. Gaze duration did not track movement. It tracked something the team initially struggled to name. The adult who received the longest, most sustained, least interrupted gaze was not the most animated person in the room. In 2 out of 3 trials, it was the calmest. The research team paused their original line of inquiry entirely. They needed to understand why. So if it isn't proximity, and it isn't movement, and it isn't expressiveness alone, what is the baby's brain actually measuring during that long, unblinking stare? The answer arrives from 3 directions simultaneously, and none of them are what parenting culture tends to reach for. The first factor is facial symmetry, and it operates at a level far deeper than aesthetics. Researchers have known since the early 1990s that human infants show a measurable preference for symmetrical faces, but for years this finding was framed as a curiosity, a biological accident, a faint echo of adult attraction patterns. What the newer research reveals is that it is none of those things. It is a detection system. A 2017 study at the University of California, San Diego presented 88 infants aged 3 to 6 months with pairs of digitally modified faces that were identical in every feature except a degree of bilateral symmetry. Babies held gaze significantly longer on symmetrical faces across every trial, every age group, every gender pairing. The lead researcher, Dr. Lisa Oakes, described the response as automatic and pre-attentive, meaning it activates before conscious attention even engages. The baby is not choosing to look at the symmetrical face. The brain routes attention there before choice becomes possible. At the neurological level, symmetry functions as a quick signal. This face carries low biological noise. This face is worth more processing time. The baby has no concept of beauty. The brain has its own concept entirely, and it is older than language by several 100,000 years. The second factor is where the science becomes genuinely strange, because expressiveness alone does not hold infant gaze, but expressiveness combined with responsiveness does. This is a distinction that matters enormously. Babies react strongly to faces that change, that smile, raise eyebrows, and shift expression. But only when those changes feel contingent, meaning the face is responding to the baby rather than simply performing at the baby. A person who makes broad, animated expressions on a fixed schedule holds less infant attention than a person who offers a single, genuine smile precisely when the baby makes a sound. Think about what that means. The baby's brain distinguishes between performance and response with a precision that most adults cannot consciously manage. Expressiveness is not entertainment for a baby. It is evidence. Evidence that the face across from them is actually tracking them, actually present, actually in the same moment they are in. And that evidence, that precise contingent signal, is what converts a passing glance into a locked, sustained, unblinking stare. The third factor is the one that surprises people most, because it has almost nothing to do with what a person does and almost everything to do with what a person is, emotionally, in that moment. Babies are acutely sensitive to the difference between a calm nervous system and a tense one, and this sensitivity appears within hours of birth. A 2018 study at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences measured cortisol levels in 104 infants during social encounters with adults who had been assessed for baseline physiological stress. Babies held longer, more stable gaze toward adults with lower physiological stress markers, not adults who appeared calm, but adults whose bodies were actually calm, measured at the hormonal level. The infants were picking up on cues that were largely invisible to every adult in the room. Slight changes in muscle tension, micro variations in vocal tone, the specific quality of stillness that comes from genuine ease versus the performed stillness of someone trying to appear relaxed. Babies process these signals and respond to them with their most reliable instrument, their gaze. This is why people who are simply acting naturally hold baby attention longer than people who try hard to be entertaining. The trying registers as noise. The baby's brain is not looking for a show. It is looking for a nervous system it can trust. A person who is self-conscious around babies, trying too hard, leaning in too fast, using a voice that does not belong to them, will consistently lose a stare down to the person sitting quietly across the room who is not trying at all. The most honest summary of all three factors is this: babies do not stare at the most interesting person in the room. They stare at the person who feels the most real. But here is where it gets significantly more complicated, and where the finding researchers describe as both the most important and the most ignored in this field of developmental science arrives. The three-factor model. Symmetry, contingent expressiveness, genuine calm, predicts who a baby stares at in a new environment. It does not fully predict what that stare means for that specific baby's development. A 2020 longitudinal study published in the journal Child Development tracked 280 infants from birth through 18 months, measuring not just gaze patterns, but the downstream effects of who those gaze patterns were directed toward during key developmental windows. What they found changed how the field understands those quiet moments entirely. The quality of attention a baby practices, the specific neural circuits activated during sustained, positive, unblinking social gaze, shapes the architecture of how that baby will process faces and read emotional information for years afterward. The brain does not just observe during those stares. It trains. Every minute of sustained positive social gaze in the first year is practice for a social brain that will spend a lifetime reading rooms, reading faces, and reading the difference between a person who is present and a person who is pretending to be. This means that who a baby stares at is not a passive report on who is interesting. It is an active selection of what the brain chooses to learn from. And that changes everything about how those ordinary moments in parks, on trains, in living rooms should be understood. Think about what this means for the moment a baby locked eyes with you and held. It is not a small thing, even if it felt like one. That baby's brain sorted through every available face in that environment, ran parallel assessments of symmetry, contingent expressiveness, and genuine emotional calm, and concluded that yours was worth extended study. You were not charming the baby. You were passing an evaluation you did not know you were being given, on criteria you almost certainly never thought about consciously. Most adults spend their whole lives trying to make good impressions, editing their words, managing their expressions, calculating what to reveal and what to hold back. A baby strips all of that away. It does not evaluate your resume, your confidence, or your social skill. It evaluates your face, your responsiveness, and the actual state of your nervous system. There is no way to fake 2 out of those 3. And the reason that matters, is not about you. It is about what is happening on the other side of that gaze. A developing brain, mid-construction, choosing its training data from a world that offers more options than it can process. You were selected. That is not nothing. There is one thing worth watching, however. Sustained social gaze in infants is healthy, developmentally expected, and a reliable sign that the brain's social assessment systems are working correctly. What the American Academy of Pediatrics identifies as worth early attention is the opposite pattern. A baby who does not initiate eye contact, who breaks away immediately and repeatedly, who shows no clear preference for any face over any other across the first 6 months. Strong selective preference, staring intensely at some people and much less at others, is completely normal. But consistent avoidance of eye contact with all people across multiple weeks is a specific pattern worth raising with a pediatrician early. Not with alarm, but with a clear, calm description of what you have observed. Early attention to this pattern produces outcomes that later attention cannot replicate. So here is what this means practically. First, if you want to hold a baby's gaze, stop trying to. Performance and effort register as noise in an infant's evaluation system. Drop the exaggerated expressions, make one genuine expression at the right moment, and let it land. Second, when a baby stares at you, stare back with actual stillness. Not frozen, not blank, but present. Let your face respond to what the baby does, rather than leading the exchange, because that responsiveness is the exact signal the baby's brain is searching for. Third, if you are near a baby while anxious or tense, know that the baby is reading that state in real time. A tense nervous system registers as data, and that data shortens gaze, increases fussiness, and narrows the baby's social learning window in that moment. And finally, symmetrical faces attract initial attention, but they do not hold it. What holds it is genuine responsiveness combined with genuine calm. Any face can do that. The research does not reward the most attractive person in the room. It rewards the most present one. So the next time a baby on a train or in a park or across a room finds your face and will not look away, remember what is actually happening. It is not random. It is not flattery. It is a brain younger than language, more honest than conversation, running the most precise social evaluation any of us will ever be subject to. It sorted the room. It weighed symmetry and expressiveness, and whether your nervous system was actually at ease or only pretending to be. And then it decided, not I like this person, but something older than that, something closer to, this face is real, this presence is calm, this is worth learning from. A baby's stare does not lie. It cannot. It has not yet learned how. Tell me in the comments, has a baby ever stared at you in a way that felt different? Not just a glance, but a real, locked, unblinking stare? Were you doing anything specific, or were you just sitting there? The parent reading your comment during a late-night feed needs to know they are not imagining the moments when their baby stares at one person in a room full of people. In the next video, we are going into the psychology of babies who reach for one parent over another during fear, not preference, not favoritism. And the neuroscience behind it is not what most parents assume.